G'day guys, welcome to the first preview of 2024. We are 2 days, 6 hours and 30 minutes away before that umpire bounces the ball in anger to start our 2024 campaign opening round against the Brisbane Lions, Friday the 8th of March at the Gabba. A place where, let's face it, we haven't got a good record and we don't appear to like to go to. And look, that might be the fact that the Brisbane Lions are a very, very strong outfit and have been a good team for a significant period of time now without saluting. But even stemming back right now to 2015, round 9 was the last time we won a game at the Gabba. And we haven't, I think it's 8 in a row now that we've been beaten by the Lions. And in part of those times, they weren't a great football team. So it's not a place, and it's not a place that any team can go to with a great deal of I suppose, confidence from a fan point of view. And I don't know our current mindset at the moment. I'm not worried. I'm probably more weary with us, just weary. I feel like there's, a lot to play out this year for us. And we're not going to get a full reading on where we sit until, I don't know, it's impossible to say with us how we're going to go. I really do. I remember this time last year, I didn't go into the season with any expectations at all. I just felt we were in such poor form, and our last practice game against the Sydney Swans was terrible, and I had so many doubts about our list. And then we come out, and the second half of the season just gives us a platform. It gives us a platform, but there's still this thing in the back of my mind that we were on such a wave of emotional investment and momentum in that period of time that it's going to be a challenge to replicate that, because it just felt like it was on the back of such hard, tough, contested, brutal football, which requires so much energy and effort. And I feel like we are such an effort-based football team who don't necessarily hurt the opposition by foot, and with exquisite sort of outside sort of skill that, sometimes we make it hard for ourselves to score. And when you face a team like the Brisbane Lions, which we did in the prelim final last year, we got off to that exceptional start, and we were playing with such emotion, but as soon as they sort of just clicked into the gear, we couldn't go with them. And I suppose the excuse in the prelim is we were banged up. We were banged up, we were tired, and I don't know if we've got that excuse now. I don't feel like we can use that excuse. And I know we have some outs, and I'll get to that shortly. We have some big outs, but we're supposed to be at that stage now where we've got depth, and a lot of depth, and a really strong list. But even if we were at full strength, and the Brisbane Lions are pretty much at full strength, this is what makes this such a fucking nightmare of a trip to go to. Even if we're at full strength, I'd probably think that the Brisbane Lions would get the chocolates anyway. And let's face it, our pre-season form. Like pre-Christmas it was super positive, and felt like training when we went and watched them train pre-Christmas was, really positive, and no injuries really, no significant injuries. And then, the last, say, 3 or 4 weeks have been really concerning, it started with Wiedering, then it went into Walsh, and, the mystery around Marchbank and Co and Martin. It just, I don't know. I don't know the mindset of the group, and I wasn't impressed with training. the other day when I watched, and the two preseason games, as I mentioned, have been poor. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe I'm jumping at shadows. Maybe it's just a bluff. Maybe we've got something up our sleeves. But we're going to need something up our sleeves to, I reckon, get anywhere near the Brisbane Lions, to be perfectly honest. And I'd be somewhat content if we could get out of this game unscathed and in relatively good shape to take on Richmond the following week. And I don't want to concede, but it just feels like let's just take a fit list up to the Brisbane Lions, the guys who have put in, I suppose, the required training and played the practice games, and let's take them up there and be super competitive and try and get out of it unscathed and come back to have a crack at Richmond the following week. So what I'll do is just pretty much, the teams aren't out until tomorrow. Was it about 6:20? It's a Friday game, so we'll get our teams at that time. But there's so many players that we can't consider. I've mentioned Motlop out. I think he's our most exciting small forward. Martin, probably our without Silvani there, our most prominent hybrid. Walsh, arguably one of our best midfield, or if not in our top two best midfielders. Marchbank, you'd think that he'd partner someone like a Jacob Wiedering, and obviously Wieder's out as well. And Elijah Hollands, who's had a terrific pre-season and showed a little bit in the two practice games, he can't be considered either until after the Richmond game because of suspension. I've also, with my team, decided to leave out Pitnet. I think the Brisbane Lions will only go in with one ruck, and certain they'll only go in with Oscar McInerney. And the extra runner, I think, will help. I don't think taking both Pitnet and TDK gives us a significant advantage at all. In fact, I think it's proven, not every time. I think when they're both on song, and they're both in reasonably good form, it can work, but they're not. Pitnet's just come back and he was really poor in the practice game, and TDK hasn't had a great two games of the pre-season. I don't think you just think both of them are just going to flick the switch against the Brisbane Lions. So I'm going in with just the one ruck and get Harry to do the backup like the Brisbane Lions do with Joe Danaher. I can't have Lewis Young in my lineup as that replacement for Wiedering. I just think he's too much of a worry. I'm really concerned with what's happened with Lewis Young over the last 12 months in particular. I thought he showed so much in his first season at the football club, and it's actually a real concern to see what's happened to him to get that opportunity in the preseason games and pretty much show very little. He worries me, so I'm not playing him. I can't pick Chincotta. I just think with Williams, who's been confirmed to come in, I can't have Chincotta in the team. And I'm not picking either Corey Durden or Matt Owies, who apparently are available, but they haven't played any preseason games. And I just don't think you can take in Zach Williams coming off a knee reconstruction and one game in the VFL and then go, okay, let's bring in two other players who've played no practice games, but apparently ready to go and have got a history now of soft tissue injuries. So, and I don't necessarily think from a balance point of view, really, right here, right now, whether we need to rush in either a Corey Durden or a Matt Owies. I think Durden, he shows some promise, and Owies is a goal kicker, but I don't think they're going to add a lot to our mix against the Brisbane Lions on Friday night. So I'd be quite happy to not consider them either. No Binns, no Ashton Moyer, and also no Billy Wilson. The three of those boys, Binns in his second year, Moyer and Billy Wilson in their first years, both got a little bit of a taste in the preseason games, but they do not come into my team to face on the lines. I'd love to have some graphics up, guys, but I just haven't got time to do that at the moment. But you'll get the picture. I'll just go through how I would like to see us take on the Brisbane Lions. So in the back line, Newman. I'm bringing in Durden. I'm bringing in Sam Durden. It doesn't give me a hell of a lot of confidence, but I think I'm a little bit more confident with his ability to lock down on a Joe Danaher, not so much a Eric Hipwood, than Lewis Young at the moment. I just think watching him at training, got through a VFL game, he just seems to be a lot more solid. And he'll give us, I think he'll give us, at the very least, a really, really strong contest, which I don't think Lewis Young's giving us at the moment. Kemp in the other back pocket, going to be a big job for Brody Kemp. I thought his second half was good against Melbourne, but defensively poor. Will he take maybe a Darcy Gardner, who I think will start forward for the Brisbane Lions? He could even take a Eric Hipwood, because Eric Hipwood likes to push up the ground, which will take Kemp away from being too deep. Sard, McGovern. I've got Boyd starting on the other half-back flank and Williams starting on the bench, but you could flip that. You could have Williams, starting on the ground and Boyd on the bench. Akers, Cripps and Ollie Hollins. I think that centre line speaks for itself. I'm going with Cunningham. I don't think he set the world on fire in the pre-season, but he's fit. And he's just going to have to perform. He really does. He needs to make an impact. You don't have to have every player being a star in your football team, but when it's their time to go, they need to have a genuine impact and influence on the game. Your bit tight players, your old players need to do that. And I just think we have too many passages in this football team that don't pull their weight. And I think we are still heavily reliant on our really, I suppose, A-grade players. And I think Cunningham is a perfect example of that next level down who really needs to lift. So he'll start as that high half forward, do a little bit of work in the middle of the ground as well. And he does. He has potential to give us something that we lack, which is a little bit of speed and a little bit of class on the outside. Harry's had a good pre-season centre half forward. Fogarty, another one. I think he's a really, really hard-working half forward. Really hard-working. But, hit the scoreboard. You got to hit the scoreboard. You got to get dangerous. I just don't think he is dangerous enough, but he adds a lot in regards to our defensive pressure. And what we do know about the Brisbane Lions, they like to slingshot from their half-back line. I'll get to them shortly. Fantasia gets an opportunity. He's been brought to the clubs, had a big pre-season, played the practice games, looked okay against the D's last week, particularly early, and he'll get an opportunity. But, it's a big ask. It's a big ask for him, but he's fit, so he's got to play. Curnow, Cottrell, the other forward pocket, but don't be surprised to see Cottrell go up to a half-forward flank. And he's another one. He's had a very, very quiet pre-season after finishing off the season very strongly last season. TDK is a side ruckman against McInerney. Big ask against the big fella. But let him run around. When he gets tired. Chuck Harry in the ruck for 5-6 minutes. And I think TDK will relish that opportunity to get his hands dirty. Chera, Hewitt, solid contributors. Really, really solid contributors. Chera probably gives you a little bit more class on the outside. Hewitt, really hard contest type player. They need to be on their guard, because I think the Brisbane Lions are one of the best centre square clearance teams in the competition. If they get on top early, it could be disastrous for us. So it's a big game for both of those boys who've been solid in the practice games, but not at a level which you would think is going to sort of disrupt or trouble the strength of the Brisbane Lions midfield, which runs very, very deeply. Interchange, Doc, who can play anywhere. He can play across half-back, across half-forward, on a wing, through the midfield. Kennedy comes in. I know he's taped up like Moss Trooper, but I think he gives you a little bit of flexibility through the midfield. We know he can go forward. He's strong at the contest and has got relatively good skills, particularly bringing that ball inside forward 50. Williams back into the team. I think he's going to give us a lot of bounce and a lot of energy. I really do. Whether that's going to be enough for us in this game is very, very, very doubtful. I don't think you can bring one man in and expect the whole landscape just to change. But he does give you energy, he does give you bounce and speed, and he's a good defender, a really good defender. And he gives you that run. And I'm going, probably a bit of a surprise, I'm going with the youngster Lockie Cowan, who can be a backup in the back, in defence. He can give a Kemper chop out. Does play a lot taller than his size of 189 centimetres. He's your hybrid type defender. And I just think he played the first 6 or 7 games of 2023. And 12 months down the track, why shouldn't he be starting now? He's had a full pre-season. Well, he's a little bit underdone. I think he had a few injury concerns just before Christmas, but he's played the first practice game, played quite well against the Cats. I just think I'm having him play that role instead of, say, a Lewis Young, and I'm probably more confident to give that opportunity to a 19-year-old. And I'm going sub. You could either go Lewis Young or you could go, say, a Jack Carroll, but I'm going to give it to Jack Carroll. I think the extra runner, if we do happen to have an injury, would be pretty handy at the Gabba. So there you go. Let's go to the Brisbane Lions, guys. They got a full strength, and it's scary. You look at they'll pretty much go into this game like they went into the grand final against the Collingwood Football Club, and pretty much the same team that we took on in the prelim final at the Gabba. The only guy that's been ruled out who played in the prelim and the grand final is Colin McKenna, and I think that's I wouldn't say necessarily it's a significant out, but it is a I don't know. I really rate Conor McKenna. I thought he was exceptional in that prelim final. Him and Coleman were the two I think that really troubled us. And only really having one recognised defender who loves to run and carry, which is Coleman, gives us an opportunity to maybe put a little bit of work into him and make Coleman really accountable if we can somehow manufacture that. And that could be what Cottrell does. He could make Coleman really accountable. Because what we do know with Matthew Cottrell is he can get out the back. He's very dangerous. He's not a stupid footballer, Matthew Cottrell, and he can be dangerous forward of centre if he's given too much latitude. So we have the opportunity. We might have the strength with the running half backs in this game. If you look at Williams, you look at Boyd, you look at Sard, whereas they lose McKenna, so they go into this game with Coleman and young Wilmot, who I really like. I thought he had a really good year last year, but it's a big ask. They don't have that speed of McKenna, and I think that's probably one area of the game that I'm not quite sure if we can exploit it because we don't necessarily have the firepower in our front half with our smalls. But I don't think they're going to destroy us from their half back line like they did in the prelim final. But they have Conor McKenna and obviously Will Ashcroft, who's still coming back from that knee. And the other one they probably like to get into the team at some stage would be Tom Dudo, who's still, I think, about a month away for them. But apart from that, they've got a full list to pick from. So their back half, I know I mentioned the half backs, it's just really strong, really stable. They bring in Payne, who missed last year's grand final, just didn't quite get up. So he goes to full back, and you just know he's just gonna caravan. He's gonna lock on to either Charlie or Harry and really make life tough. They've got Harris Andrews at centre half back, and then just the guys like Starcevic. Lester's so underrated. He's very, very underrated. He's just one of those players where he's just hung on and just so highly rated. A little bit like Leicester reminds me a little bit like our Nick Newman, sort of in that veteran category now, just very, very reliable. And then their centre line. I just think they've got so many players that can roll through their midfield and cross the centre. They don't necessarily have specific wingmen other than McCluggage. They played Zorko a little bit there. They've got Dunkley. that can play on a wing at times. Chi can go up there. Bailey can spend a little bit of time on the wing. Berry has spent some time on a wing over the last couple of seasons. Fletcher as well. So they've got so many players that can roll through the wings and through the midfield. But the nightmare for me, guys, is that forward line and of theirs. And what they've been able to do is identify. Obviously, the Gunston experiment didn't work, and Gunston's gone back to Hawthorn. And okay, what can they do to bring in another player that can just free up the likes of Eric Hipwood and make life tough for the opposition? And they've trialled Darcy Gardner as that third tall, and he goes from being a defender, and I think it's been a positive for the Brisbane Lions in the first two practice games. There's a long way to go. He's not a super talented footballer, Darcy Gardner, but what he does is he enables Hipwood and Danaher to get off the chain and become real headaches. And what Gardner will do, he'll do a lot of the real grunt work, He'll get up the ground, he'll tackle hard, he'll just allow a little bit more freedom for those other two talls. And I think it's the next line of players that just give me sort of nightmares. And Rayner, Zach Bailey, and Charlie Cameron, and chuck in McCarthy as well. You just can't keep them down for too long. And, we're going to have to completely control the midfield of this game. And we're not necessarily ruckman in good form, and McInerney, who's now a really strong AFL ruckman. And if they get first use, it's just, they're going to lick their chops, this forward line of the Brisbane Lions, if they get a lot of ball. And one thing that was a concern for me through the practice matches was how disorganised our defence looked without Jacob Wiedering down there. And it's not just a personnel thing, guys. I'm not just thinking, we miss Wiedering because he's such a good player, but he is the general, and it's almost like, okay, let's chuck Harris Andrews out of the Brisbane Lions defence and let's see how it functions from a structural point of view, because he is the general. He is the one who sets them up. And I just don't know how we can hold that forward line, and they would have to have shockers. All of those Brisbane Lions forwards would have to have shockers. So if it's not Charlie Cameron causing headaches, it will be Cam Rayner will pop up. If Rayner's not doing it, Lincoln McCarthy will take a couple of contested marks for his size and kick a couple of goals. And if it's not them three sort of bigger type small forwards, it's Zach Bailey's, starting up at the centre bounces, then coming inside 450 and just causing absolute havoc with his speed and his pace and his skills. So it appears to be a mountain too high to climb, as I mentioned, in the description of this video, in the title. But I would just hope like hell that we can go up there with such a really strong resolve and take it up to them, because I think, regardless of our challenges at the moment, to simply go up there and be meek and to be beaten convincingly would be a kick in the teeth for where we are right here, right now. And I wouldn't be happy with that from a supporter point of view. We need to be really strong in this game, and we need to show that we are on the right path in 2024 with a really strong showing in the opening game of the season against the Brisbane Lions. But in saying all that, I can't see us getting the job done in this game against a really, really tough and strong opposition. Tell me what you think.